Right now, it's not even that I'm playing bad. We're just being Omega high rolled. Like, I'm genuinely questioning if Ishizu tier is the choice right now. Because it's like half of the field is trying to hard counter you with shifter and shit. And the other half is just mirror matches that are in Master Duel best of one. The mirror match still feels like freaking gambling. Because like tier is also a freaking 50-50 every time. Like I have barely more than 50% win rate. I can do that with almost any deck.
Alright, so this is gonna be a discussion video, and by discussion I mean this is gonna be me ranting about Ishizu Tearlaments for like, I don't know however long my rant will last for. But so when we got this, so what you're looking at here is like a pretty standard Ishizu tier list, Ishizu tier deck list. Probably like 35 of the cards are bit box standard, and there's like a couple tech choices here and there. I explain to them, but this is what I started playing with at the start of the World Championship qualifier. This is what a lot of people played. A list similar to this. You know, there's no. I guess you could include the Gravekeeper's track stuff instead of my tech choices, but those are the marginal differences. It's mostly the similar main deck. And when this deck was announced, a lot of people were like excited about how, because this format was very skillful in the TCG and OCG. As far as I'm aware, I haven't played the OCG, but I'll take people's word for it, and I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be for them. You know, oftentimes the better player won, and there was a lot of interactions, and there's a lot of ways you can outplay your opponent in the matter of the game state. Now, I will admit I'm not the best at this deck. I will fully admit that, but from my experience playing this deck, and from watching Josh and people like Raydai stream their climbs while playing Ishizu tier on Twitch, you know, check them out. But this was just like not it. Like, this was nowhere near as skillful as it was in the TCG or the OCG. This is like for a couple reasons that I guess I'll get to right now. First off, the limitations to the names and the cards in general, extremely frustrating. So like, what did it accomplish, right? Did it make tier a weaker deck compared to the field? No, tier is far and away still the best deck of the format, regardless of how many names it has. So like, it didn't do anything to curb the power level. So what was the point of limitations? Well, what they did do was make mirror matches between two tier decks a lot more sacky. That's from what I've noticed. You're missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like upwards of 5 separate tier names that you would have had in like the paper formats. And so what would happen more often now is when you get a mill off, right? It's more likely that one person is just going to mill significantly better than the other. You know, such as milling more triggers, or if you're only milling 3, there's just a high chance you're just missing good millers to begin with. And milling Rhinoheart is also becomes not as good because you want to pitch a good name to pitch off Rhinoheart, right? Because like since you're lacking names both in deck and names to draw into, right? It's more often that you don't also don't have a good name to, even if you mill Rhinoheart, there's a lot of times you won't have a good name to pitch off the Rhino in the first place. Which is like something I'm sure you know, is it's like milling Rhinoheart becomes a lot less good in the Master Duel format than with like a TCG where you have a full copies of these. And it goes beyond just milling as well. Like, it's just straight up opening cards like in your deck, because you look at something like Purple Rhino. Purple Rhino is the best card to open, have access to in the mirror. Right, this card is insane. It turns like basically it gives the text to all your fusions or all of your shufflers that say in addition to their effect once per turn you can also pop a card on the field, and that lets you do so much. You can pop your own stuff to get value. Like you can pop your own streams if you didn't mill any to add traps. You can pop your own Sully X to get any monster you're missing. You can pop your own like Kit Kalos if you got impermanent, like play through disruption that way. You can pop Kaleido and send anything from your deck that you're missing that you didn't mill out throughout the turn. You can even like pop names on your field at like a quick play speed to trigger their effects to fusion summon. Like it's insane the amount of stuff you can do with it. And obviously, you know, you can destroy your opponent's cards too. Like you don't like say they try to go for a Dweller Zeus line, right, which is like the most common way people will the most common and most effective way people will play into an Ishizu tier board to clear it. Well, I mean, now you can pop your Dweller, and then suddenly, you know, they can Dweller you, but then they need to commit even more to like an additional rank 4 on top of Dweller, and be able to land an attack, and then get the Zeus off on you. It's like, otherwise you're just going to deal with Pro Rhino constantly every turn. Like, one of the most disheartening things about playing tier in Master Duel is your opponent goes Terraforming for Pro Rhino at Sharon, and then you're looking at your hand and you don't have either of those cards, and you're like, damn, I'm just playing this game from so far behind. And on top of that, with the limitations as well, it also like affects, just straight out affects the deck's consistency. You notice my build has a Power, Prosperity, and Reinforcement of the Army. That's because the decks, like, they're so, like, you cut down on so many starters since you're missing 2 field spells, and you're missing a copy of Sharon, which is the best extender in the deck, and you're missing a copy of Merly, which is, again, the one of the best things you want to summon off Kit. Like, now oftentimes you're hard searching for Merly instead of using Kit to search for something else. I guess the point I'm really trying to make is that the quality of hand you have in this deck, and like the quality of like starters you can open, just varies greatly. You can open like the nuts, and you could have Terraforming or Purple Rhino and with a Sharon and then another tier name, or you could have Mudora pitching Kelbeck as your only way to start playing the game in order to like blindly mill 5, because that's the only way you can get anything engined properly, because you brick, because again you didn't draw your limited amount of tier names. Like quite frequently, like you won't have 2 players have an equally strong hand. It's like very often one person will have a significantly better hand than the other, and you can just easily tell who does. Like, some hands Rhino Heart Pass loses to a single disruption. Some hands you have Scream plus Sharon, and it's like you play through, like, they literally cannot physically stop you with like 4 different hand traps they have. And when like 2 players have such a wide range of hands like that, that kind of undermines a bit of the skill in the matchup. Whereas again, if nothing was limited, if everything was at 3, you know, then the quality of hands would be much more similar for both players. Like both players would just open godly every time, and both players would have a myriad of options to deal with their opponent and be able to start their plays. But even if we set aside the possible huge variance between both players' starting hands, even if both players open equally good hands, right? There's still the major problem with Master Duel, and this is my main point of this video, is the best of 1 format really puts a dampening on the skill expression in the mirror match. Mainly because in a best of 1, right, only one player gets to go first. It's not like a best 3 where both players gets to go first at least once, and you get to side specifically if you know you're going first or second. And now if you're like just blindly flip a coin and one person goes first, and you both build your decks according to a best 1 format, then the person who went first is gonna have a massive advantage over the player that went second in the tier mirror. And that is largely due to Master Duel's card pool missing one of the best tools for going second against tier. These cards that were available in both the TCG and OCG during their Tier 0 Ishizu Tearlament formats. And I'm talking about the Bystials. So if you don't know what the Bystials are, I'll put them on the screen right now. Well, they're essentially DD Crows for light and dark monsters that also special summon themselves and put a huge 2500 attack body on the field. In addition, Magnabud is insane because not only does it like DD Crow your opponent once and special summon itself, it also searches another Bystial in the end phase, so you get another DD Crow plus beater for the next turn. Which is obviously, that kind of effect is more powerful than any hand trap we currently have in Master Duel right now. Like the insane part is, like, again, it's DD Crow. The DD Crow like effect is obviously very good since it can't be chain blocked like certain other hand traps, and it just banishes tier names and stops their effects. But also having the 2500 buying in the field is massive, since before, if you would crow names out of their grave, just crow names out of the grave and stuff like that, they could very often still like have extenders in their hand or level 4 extenders, and then put pressure you on with a Dweller at least. Or they could hard draw stuff like their trap cards like Sulliek or Crime, and then you would still have to deal with potentially up to a Dweller and a name backed up by a trap, which is still, after going -1 if you're hand trap, that's like really hard to deal with. But if you have the 2500 bar in the field, now you can just out the Dweller that they can make Dweller, sure, and then Dweller you on your turn, but then you can simply run over the Dweller with no investment at all, like just for free, and like not waste anything, not have to play into their field and lose harder into Sulliek. Or you can run over the tier name they have on the field. Fun fact, even if they have a Kid Callus on the field, you can still run that over with the free Bystial that you summon, and then turn off their Tearlament traps. Which is again massive. It's like it's a 2-for-1 deal. It disrupts their attempts to fusion summon, and it also pressures their field at the same time. And not having that as a tool for going second in Master Duel, it makes just going second in Team Mirror just feel so bad. Like if you compare it to the other hand traps we have, even Maxi. Maxi is another fine example of the imbalance of going first versus second. Because if, let's say your opponent's going first and you Maxi them, well, guess what? They're gonna special summon once, at most give you 2 draws, if that, and then on something like a Kid Callus and a trap. So they have 1 disruption with their trap, their Sulliek, and then they also get the mill 5 on your turn, which is definitely gonna hit some sort of other disruption for like what, 1 draw off Maxi. But then contrast to if they were the one with Maxi and they went first and they resolved their combo, much like how every other deck operates, if they establish their board and then they Maxi you, the game is over, because their board, the Tearlament board, is going to have any combination of a Dweller, stuff like Elf bringing back a Merly for more mills, a Scream on board, a Crime and or a Sulliek, plus another fusion potentially, and then they max you on top of that, and you're gonna have to, like, if you're going to clear that board at all, the minimum amount of summons you have to do is going to Dweller and then Zeus, which is at minimum 3 summons. And if they have a fully fleshed out board, like, you're gonna need to summon more than that to even get that through. So like you're replenishing their whole hand just to have a chance at resetting the game, and you're gonna, like, at the same time you're burning all your resources running into disruption, while probably under Dweller, mind you. Like, it's actually unbelievable how much better Maxi is if you're the player going first as opposed to going second using it. Like that's. And then the next ones we have are like Imperm and Crow. Like these are fine compared to Bystials. Crow does half a Bystial, but like I mentioned before, it does the banish effect to stop the fusion summon, but it doesn't do anything to like the stuff they put on the field after you stop 1 fusion summon, or if you like want to try to wait and banish the Kid Callus, which is probably not going to work because at that time they're gonna mill a shuffler in the grave, so it's like like whatever, right? Right? And then you need to find a way to get over their dweller or find a way to make a play, because even if you curl them inside their fusion summon, passing on like a crime or Sulliak set with a potentially a dweller after you lost a curl out of your hand, it's kind of rough. And Baylor and Mourner are like the same, similar to Inform in that you can stop the Kid Callus too, and it still loses to hard drawn traps, and it loses to hard drawn Hero Rhino. It loses to hard drawn and extender, because then you stop the Kid, which is their main play, but if they have a secondary play after you minus yourself, and it can often still end on Dweller because of all the extenders. Like here's another thing. Like annoyingly enough, Agito can special summon himself if you hand trap them with something like a Valor or Mourner or Crow, because a card was sent from your hand to the grave. Guess what doesn't get sent from your hand to the grave and is a hand trap? The Bystials, right? So you just by using a traditional hand trap like this, versus a Bystial, you're giving them an extra opportunity to just get a level 4 body on the field. And level 4 bodies in this game, in this matchup, is huge. Like, that's half a Dweller right there. Like, Ashe is like, I don't need to... I'm sure you know by now how Ashe against the main Tearlament engine is hit or miss at best, you know? That's honestly the most impactful it will ever be is at stopping Max C. You know, it's just same old Master Duel stuff. And Bell and Meister as Handtraps to target the graveyard are already nowhere near as good as Crow, because again, chain blocking these is extremely simple, and people will do it like not even to play around these cards. They will just do it naturally, because if say you hit a Miller and a name, right? Like you want to use the name as chainlink 1 and Miller second, so you want to mill more stuff to use as fusion during the grave in the first place. You're not even playing around Bell in that case, but you just happen to do so anyways without even considering that as a card. And like the next best thing in hand trap in the mirror to use would be like Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, which is something people did side in the TCG, but they sided for going second because this is a dead card going first. If you try to play and then you get disrupted, then well, you can't use this as a backup either, because now you control more monsters than your opponent does, or as many as your opponent does. And the reason I'm going to still deep into hand traps, because even though these are all like really suboptimal ways to try to handle tier going second, like obviously Boardbreakers are just as unreliable. Like the ones I'll show you here. If your plan is to, instead of hand trapping them and trying to stop their play, if you let them combo off and you're trying to break their board with Boardbreakers, let's go over why each of these individually fall flat. So first of all, most tier players now will end on a live crime if you let them combo off. So that automatically, like, it means a single evenly matched is probably not going to do it. You're going to need a way to bait out the crime and then evenly matched, or like double evenly. It's like force you to draw multiple outs, and mind you, if they set up that combo, there's a high chance there's going to be a Dweller on the field too, so keep in mind that all of these, you're playing most of these board breakers. If that's your strategy, you're playing them into a Dweller. So, and then you would think, oh, droplets, you can drop with the Dweller, right? Well, not if crime is up. You gotta hard draw one of these in order to stop the Dweller with droplets. And you know, the hard drawing these is not reliable. You're actually probably better off hoping that they mill you out and that they mill a screen for you so that you can add one of these to hand so that you can pitch it with droplet. But even then, like, okay, so you stop the Dweller, right, and you pitch like a couple cards from your hand, so you're working with like a three, maybe 4 card hand if you're lucky. But then they have all the other crap on the field. You know, God forbid they went through a Sprite Elf into Cyber Sign. Now they have an Exterior and like another fusion out with a Sulliek and Crime waiting in the wings for you, because, you know, they didn't burn the Crime on the droplets, but now they have a Crime to use on the rest of your hand that you just dumped. Which, by the way, droplets dumping does does not trigger your tier effects. So yeah, if you wanna, the only ways to like dump, the only beneficial dumps off droplet are like dumping shufflers or dumping a miller and hoping that milling both you and your opponent getting twisted puts you back in the game versus their field. It's again, not the exactly most effective or like cost-effective way to deal with a Sherman's board, but it's probably maybe even more reliable than super polymerization, because the idea behind this is if your opponent ends on Rukalos plus Dweller or Dweller plus Muddragon for some reason, like 2 water monsters, you could Dweller and you can Super Poly and draw face, and then they won't have Dweller, and then you get rid of it, and you don't have to deal with that, and then you get a Muddragon on your field for free. But like, you know, a lot of people just don't end on Rukalos Dweller. They just don't end on a board that can get Super Poly, because like this exists. You know, why would you? You don't need to. Like you don't need Rukalos for Muddragon on the field with a Dweller. You like just having something like a Dweller and like a random like dumb name on the field, like an extra Merly, even if you manage to dump an extra one, or like Dweller by itself beats the Super Poly, and then it's like, and if you're not Super Poly and Dweller, it's like the Super Poly is not even that good, because you're gonna Super Poly away their Rukalos that they're just gonna get back anyways. It's like that it doesn't even turn off your Crime or Sulliek, which is the thing, because on the Super Poly and the Droplet, right, they don't deal with the back row. The back row is just as threatening as the front row. Alright, as long as they can have any sort of tier monster on the field, like the Sulliek negating your pushes with your ranked floors, and then being able to send their tier names to the grave, and then Crime just shuffling shit like back. Like Super Poly does not deal with that very, very well whatsoever. And next is like Triple Tactics Hounds. This is much like Maxi, this is yet another card that heavily banned, that is way better for the player that's going first versus the player that's going second. So going second, imagine that board, right? They shotgun Dweller and draw phase. So now you're under Dweller, and now you go into main phase, and you can't even use the tactic because they Dweller you in draw phase. So now their entire board plus the Dweller, you're gonna have to play into their stuff, and then after you waste your resources under Dweller, then you can get the Triple Tactics live to like do what exactly? You're used like you're floodgated, and you use like your hand, a bit of your hand, so you can get your Triple Tactics live to take a Dweller. By the way, if they use Dweller and you Triple Tactics take the Dweller, you cannot use that same Dweller that turn. This is a one spot. It's a ruling where you can't. It applies to the whole. Like it applies for the whole turn, so you can't activate the same Dweller again. So you cannot take the Dweller and use it on them. You know, it doesn't. It's not even that good. So it's like you can like maybe you can take one of their tier monsters away, and then that could maybe turn off their trap cards. So in a sense, that might be better than Super Poly sometimes. But if they have like an elf that. But if they're playing on Elf and they can just Elf revive the Merly, then it's kind of, then the Merly still gets the mill effect off, and then and then like that's the earliest opportunity to Triple Tactics. It's like as compared to going first, right? Let's say you go first with Triple Tactics, right? Well, first of all, they Havness you. Triple Tactics is the ultimate punish. They like hand trap you, obviously, but also. You can just force them into their Triple Tactics by milling them. Like if you're up on a shuffler, like if you have access to one more shuffler than they do, either by milling it or by like just having in your hand and you summoning it, then you can mill, being that you're probably gonna end up on top in that interaction, since you have an extra shuffler, so you have a guaranteed way to stop any stuff they mill, and you're the player going first, so you can do more stuff with your mills. So yeah, then you like just mill their deck, and they have shufflers, and they mill tier names, and then they trigger their tier names, because why wouldn't you? And then you shuffle their tier names back, and then you can still triple tactics talents them. Like, that's such a stronger play going first than like playing into the already dweller board with triple tactics. And dark, I don't even know why I put dark board. This card is not. Once again, it's like a super poly that doesn't even remove any of the monsters. So like again, you're only dealing with half their board at most. And I would argue that the traps are like, aside from Dweller, the traps are the scariest forms of the disruption in the mirror. And you know, it's not like Dark Ruler could stop the Dweller anyways. So I hope I've at least somewhat made my point clear about why going second in the tier mirror is such significantly worse in Master Duel than it was in either TCG or OCG, because of the lack of Bystials and the best of one format, and you know, the subpar going second tools and all that stuff. And I'll say, like, there's a reason why, like, when the top 100 deck lists for the World Championship qualifiers come out, you're not gonna, I'm gonna hedge a bet, like, you're gonna see a lot more non-tier decks than you would expect, despite being a tier 0 format. Because I was watching Ray Dye stream, I was watching Joshua Smith stream. Both of them, at some point, like into Saturday, they were like, bro, this tier mirror is like not it. Like we've played this tier mirror in the TCG. This is like, this Master version is far more sacky than what we're used to. And both of them eventually just switched off tier into their own pet decks, like Sprite or Exosister, and had a much less stressful, much more successful duration of their event. And I did the same. You know, here's the deck I changed to from tier to play the rest of the event, starting at the end of Saturday even. And I climbed much more in the last, like, not even 24 hours than I did the entire first 2 days of the event, just by getting off of tier. So, I mean, is it a skill issue? Like yeah, probably a bit. You know, you know, I ain't saying I'm the best tier player, but you know, as I will say, at least like an average tier player, like, this is what my perspective has been, and I know that a lot of better tier players than I do also have shared somewhat of a sentiment like this. So if you agree, or if you disagree, and you have better reasons to explain why I'm wrong, I would like to hear them, because yeah, I've only been hearing perspectives from me and like the few streamers I watch, so I would love to hear your guys' opinion about this too.